So it's the story. The story is obviously the main reason for Clair Obscur's critical acclaim. We can talk about the realism graphics that are atypical for the genre, we can talk about the unbelievably long musical score that never misses, we can talk about the aesthetics of the combat. At the end of the day, I think we should all be able to agree that what is special here is the story. But there are many wonderful stories in gaming, and many of those games did not create such a widespread discourse and reverence amongst the community. So, what is it about this game's story that makes this such an acclaimed piece of art? I believe I have some thoughts and theories, so please allow me to elucidate. I plan to bounce around a lot of different ideas and topics, so with that in mind, I want to establish my framework for my argument before we get started. What makes a story or a narrative have mass appeal? I believe that if a story excels in four metrics, it has a very good chance of becoming a widely accepted masterpiece. Those four metrics are compelling characters, relatable themes, emotional resonance, and a strong narrative structure. Let's go through each one in relation to Clair Obscur, starting with compelling characters. Okay, so the characters in this game are awesome, and everybody seems to agree with this notion, but why? I believe in the most simple sense it is because they are multidimensional characters who audiences can root for or despise or identify with, and that last part is critical. I want to talk about the women in this game and why they should be the gold standard going forwards for incorporating women into video game storytelling. To start, I want to establish that feminism is defined as the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. I am a feminist, and I believe we all should be. This school of thought doesn't argue women should be above others, it argues that we should seek to reach a state of equality in what has always been a patriarchal society since the dawn of time. It is an indisputable fact that none of us would exist without a woman sacrificing their body carrying us for nearly a year. But I digress. My main point is that Clair Obscur is quite clearly a feminist story, and it achieves this so naturally and wonderfully that I'm sure most people don't even recognize this. Let me explain this in a few different ways, starting with the Bechdel test. For those of you who don't know, the Bechdel test is a simple metric used to evaluate the representation of women in works of fiction. To pass the Bechdel test, a work must meet two criteria. It must have at least two women in it, and these women must talk to each other about something that has nothing to do with a man. You would be surprised how many works of fiction fail this test. Obviously, Clair Obscur passes with flying colors, and I'd be here all day if I listed all of the examples, but here's a few. We have three main characters who are women in Mael, Lune, and Ciel. Five if you want to include Clea and Aline, and there are countless scenes in which women converse in this game about topics completely independent of men. The most relevant of which is probably the scene between Lune and Ciel where they talk about their past relationship prior to the present. Now, I want to be clear, the Bechdel test is not a definitive measure of feminism or equality of representation, but rather a diagnostic tool to highlight gender imbalances in storytelling. Nonetheless, Clair Obscur passes that test and it does possess excellent representation, which I'd like to talk about now. Obviously, the easiest way to represent women in a meaningful way is to place them in positions of power within the story. Clair Obscur does this in many scenarios. Gustave's sister Emma is the chief counselor of Lumiere. Lune is in charge of plotting navigation for the expedition and later on becomes almost a de facto leader of what's left after Painted Renoir's attack. Golgra is the leader of the Gestrals. Aline is the head of the Painters Council. But here's the thing. Many works of fiction stop there and don't go beyond placing women in powerful positions when it comes to representation in the story, so it comes across as forced and non-authentic, almost like a token decision. What Clair Obscur does phenomenally well is it goes deeper than just giving these women power. They give these women complex character arcs and histories. They make sure they are well-developed people with agency, with depth, with flaws. And perhaps most importantly, they give these women authentic autonomy and voice within the story. These women are not passengers. They make decisions that drive the plot as opposed to just existing in support of male character arcs. Though they've gotten better about it over time, the perfect example of what I'm trying to articulate here would be Link and Zelda. Zelda exists in all of the earlier Zelda stories solely as a plot device in support of Link and Ganon's arc. She is there to help Link become a hero, whether that's through guidance or just simply existing in captivity so he has motivation to rise up and fight. She exists so that Ganon has something through which he can gain power, that of course being the Triforce of Wisdom. Part of the reason The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker is so acclaimed is that this was the first Zelda game to begin to break away from that notion through Tetra. Tetra was a badass who was the leader of the pirate crew, but she was also savvy and cunning and operated throughout the story with her own autonomy. She didn't cater to the player's whims or exist solely for Link. She had her own shit going on basically throughout the entire story, and oftentimes you were the one who fit in around what she had going on. Her character developed, and eventually it was revealed that she was in fact Zelda, but this was really so awesome to me as a child, and it was a great example that it isn't harmful to boys or men if a girl or woman can stand on their own within a story. Another quick example before I continue would be Mario and Princess Peach. This is the most obvious one. She literally exists in the story and the game just to sit in captivity and then be saved by you at the end of the game. Kiss on the cheek, yay, we won. A few last things that I'd like to add is that Clair Obscur does a wonderful job showcasing a diversity of female experiences. You have Mael's coming-of-age story, Clea's staunch determination to fight back against cruel circumstances no matter what, CL's commitment to not letting her horrific life change who she is as a person, Lune's tenacity and resolve to maintain her strength for the group. Clair Obscur is multifaceted and is showcasing of all of the things that women are truly capable of, and I really love that. This kind of leads into my next point within this topic, and that is that we have a lot of subverted gender norms here. The one of many that sticks out within my mind comes in the early game. Gustav is literally in shock and losing it to the point that he is going to kill himself. And it's Lune who walks him back from the edge and shows strength in a moment where she's feeling just as weak. This really sticks out to me because in probably 9 out of 10 fictional stories, you would expect the man in this situation to be the one who does what Lune does, and the woman to do what Gustav does. I feel like it's a powerful planting of the flag here very early on in the game by Sandfall that this story is for everyone and a story that they hope everyone will be able to see themselves in to some capacity. But in speaking of the subverting of gender norms, I would like to transition to my next point, which is the other side of the coin, so to speak. Clair Obscur does a sensational job showcasing healthy masculinity. What I love about this game is that masculinity is not defined by control over others or power like it is in many stories. It is defined by integrity, empathy, and contribution to goals. Let me expand this statement. We see such raw emotional expression and intelligence from all of the male characters in this game. We see Painted Renoir show as much compassion and care for Mael as he can, in spite of being completely opposed to her. We see Gustav emotionally lean on CL and Lune, and we also see him console Mael and just be there for her in general. We see him do his best to be present for Sophie during her gommage. We see how he does his utmost to not make it about him and to just simply cater to her needs and wants in her last moments. We see Verso be unafraid in allowing himself to be consoled by Esquier, and we see that under all the bravado, the core of his relationship with Monoko is a tender love and care. All of this stuff truly matters, irrespective of if people actually notice it or not. So when I say compelling characters are a reason for why this game was received in such universal acclaim, this is what I mean. Clair Obscur definitely handles the intersectionality of gender better than almost any story in gaming that I can think of. Now, the next metric I had mentioned that this story excels in is that of relatable themes. A major theme in this game's narrative is, of course, grief. Grief is a universal experience that every human being will have to go through. It's just a matter of when. If you're lucky, your time hasn't come yet, but for many of us, that time has come, and within this narrative, we can definitely connect on a very deep level with many of the different motivations. We can understand why the people of Lumiere's existence would be so horrifying should we pause and think of loved ones who are older than us. If we're parents, we can put ourselves in Renoir or Gustav's shoes and understand the desperation of both characters in regards to Mael. If we're siblings, we can put ourselves in Mael's or Verso's shoes and understand why their conflict has a certain element of inevitability to it. So you see, it's not just the game has a relatable major theme of grief, it's also that the character's positionality within the narrative is extremely relatable. People from all kinds of walks of lives can see themselves within the game's scenarios and characters. And this leads into the next metric for a story capable of garnering mass appeal, and that is emotional resonance. Emotional resonance is basically how deeply the story connects with people on an emotional level. In other words, can you empathize with the characters? Do you find catharsis from moments within the story? Does it stir up nostalgia or inspiration? So I grant you this is stuff that we just went over, and Clair Obscur's profound emotional resonance is largely a result of the compelling characters and relatable themes. That said, this game resonates with people on a scale that I honestly can't recall in recent years in the gaming world. It's not just that everyone is talking about how good the game is, like a Baldur's Gate 3 for instance. People are talking about the profound effect this game has had on their life. Something in this game stirs people into sharing deeply personal experiences and ideologies with strangers online to explain their personal connection with the characters or a story arc. And to me, in an ideal world, this is exactly what gaming can offer. The ability for people to bridge the gap with each other and enter a room on completely equal terms, removed from life's circumstances and difficulties, and just connect with each other over the game. Now, the last metric for a narrative with mass appeal is a strong narrative structure. As we know, this game essentially follows a 3-act structure, which is widely used in fiction. There's Act 1 Gustav, Act 2 Verso, and Act 3 Mael. Now, I've actually seen that there's a small group of people online where this is actually their biggest issue with the game. Obviously, the story changes quite dramatically in between each act, and some players feel a sense of whiplash trying to keep up. I personally feel like that whiplash is a very real thing, but I also feel like it's something that was deliberately done and also something that actually enhances the story. Clair Obscur is flawless in terms of which points of the story they give you certain pieces of information. As we know, in the prologue in Act 1 Gustav, we get this absolutely beautiful conception of a wonderfully unique and inventive world. In 2025, with so many remakes or spin-offs, it can certainly feel like stories across fiction have become a bit uninspired. Maybe Clair Obscur's biggest strength is its inimitable premise. The game does a wonderful job of introducing you to the rules of the world and letting its characters pull you into caring about them deeply. It does a wonderful job of showing you the beauty of the continent, and through the gesturals, they show you life can thrive and the world isn't completely hopeless outside of Lumiere. But this is exactly why some players feel whiplash throughout the story. Act 1's ending brings the death of the beloved main character up to that point and replaces him with a standoffish stranger who, in many ways, is Gustav's exact opposite. The vibe of this moment is very much how dare you stand where he stood. Then you spend a whole act getting accustomed to Verso and his dynamic within the group, and then at the end of Act 2 it's revealed that the entire world you grew to love is a world within a canvas, and your entire mission and goal wasn't what it seemed. Then Act 3 obviously is the Sandra family epic that culminates in a duel between Mael and Verso. I think a large part for the frenetic pace of the story and the huge climaxes is so that they can fit in a ton of subtext within the narrative and also change the way that you process information. The framing of the plot itself is a challenge posed to the players. They deliberately make you fall in love with Lumiere and its characters because the world is within the canvas, and the realization of that will make you question how to define what constitutes of real life. If you knew the whole time what the canvas was, your perception would be completely aligned with the Desandra family. I think much more of you wouldn't see the souls within as having equal weight. This is also why they made the choice of having Mael be born into the canvas, because as a result, the same question is posed to her once she regains her memories. Many people feel that the canvas revelation cheapens the first act and removes meaning from the canvas characters within the game, but to that I would say, you questioning that is the entire point. One of the main points of the narrative is for us to wrestle with the definition of what is a life and what has value. I think maybe the best example for how genius and successful their narrative structure was is Gustav's death. Gustav was basically as likable as you can make a character, so he's basically universally beloved. We find out that Verso basically let him die, but for many people that doesn't impact how much they like Verso. But there's a reason for this. We find out that Verso did this while we were still reeling from the revelation about the world. We don't find out in the conversation with Mael pre-memories, we find out with Mael post-memories, who doesn't even condemn Verso for what he did. Some players are straight up overstimulated at this point. Some players at this point are already fully committed to the idea that the Desandras are the only real people in this story. But imagine if we learned about this prior to the revelation about the canvas. Let's say we find out in a conversation with Eskie and not Mael, so the other characters don't know and so they don't expel him from the group upon learning, and we just continue playing with him. I don't think most players would be able to overcome their anger and disappointment at Verso in the long run, and this is due to something called the primacy effect. Pioneered by psychologist Solomon Asch in the 1940s, the primacy effect is a cognitive bias in which people tend to better remember or be more influenced by the first information they receive, especially in a sequence. So in the context of impression formation, the primacy effect means that early information about someone shapes our overall perception of them more strongly than information we learn later. So because the narrative handles Gustav's death the way that it does, a lot of people never overcome the primacy effect of seeing Verso as a hero, in spite of later information that they learn about the bad things he's done. Because the narrative introduces us to Mael the way that it does, a lot of people never overcome the primacy effect of seeing her as a little girl who needs to be protected and who doesn't possess the necessary self-sufficiency to make rational choices, in spite of the fact she grows so much throughout the story, and the fair question could eventually be raised if others are the ones who need protection from her. So the primacy effect could be a microcosm of the general overarching idea that this game excels in delivering information and lore to you at the right points in the story, which obviously suggests that this game does indeed have an exceptional narrative structure. So in the end, Clair Obscur isn't just a beautifully crafted game, it's a landmark example of how video games can operate as complex cultural texts. Its characters subvert archetypes, its plot weaponizes structure to reframe morality, its themes, grief, autonomy, identity, aren't just present, they're embodied. The acclaim is not accidental, it's earned. And I truly believe that this game will linger on in all of our souls. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you infinitely from the bottom of my heart. It's been great chatting with you all and even getting to know some of you. As the channel grows, I want that sense of camaraderie and community to be a staple. So along that vein, I wanted to share with you a few things. In thinking of ways I can offer you guys value outside of the videos, something came to mind as I watched literally thousands of you converse. I want to start up a monthly call where viewers of the channel can debate any and all things video games. Obviously in the near future I'd expect us to be chatting Clair Obscur for the most part, but this is a channel and community where we will cover many different games in the long run, so anything is free game. We can hash it out over in the Discord for sure, but I think in the long run this could evolve into something where we have debates on topics that we pick ahead of time, and we can have teams or 1v1 debates and a panel of judges. Whoever wins the debate can get shoutouts in videos where I name drop and I also say which debate they won and how many they have won to date. It would be cool to see if debate GOAT, so to speak, emerges on the channel in the long run, but honestly I just want a better way to connect with those of you who are most passionate about video games, because I'm right there with you. I've always loved this shit and I always will. So to enter our Senate chamber and get going on debates, head over to the links in the description and sign up for a monthly membership either here on YouTube or over on Buy Me a Coffee. I'm so excited to get this going, and let's tentatively say our first debate will be about the game's endings. To be clear, content will run as usual on the channel and the videos will still be in-depth analysis on different things, and depending on how this video does, I'm actually thinking maybe Sunday could be the day that you guys expect to see a video from me each week. Let me know what you think about that. But that wraps up the updates from me on my end, and I hope to chat with you in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on the video. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and have a great day, night, or morning, and remember to be kind and thoughtful. Peace.
I didn't take you for a coward.
I'm not a coward.
You swore the oath. When one falls, we continue.
Yes, I know.
When one falls. When one falls. Not if, when. We knew not all of us would make it, but we continue. As long as even one of us stands, our fight is not over.
But I'm not afraid to fight, it's just Mael, she's...
Mael swore the same oath.
I know that!
She chose her life. You and I... Come on, we always said the future of Lumiere is more important than
any individual life, yes.
Do you still believe that? Do you still believe that? Do you?
I hope I do.
Fuck the mission. Really?
Sorry.